r/askreddit. What's the worst case you've seen of someone trying to play the victim when it was all their own fault? Local business owner friend asked a lot of his regular customers to invest in his new business in Atlanta by buying shares. I bought in, knowing we wouldn't break even for at least 3 years, but that he could sell religion to the Pope. Had losses for 2 years, break even at 3 as predicted. 4 years in, he closes the Atlanta store and opens in another town, but this time he's doing it all with his own money. Bullshit, he's doing it with the inventory and proceeds from the Atlanta store. Even has a shiny new house, cars, the works for his new venture. He's shocked to the core, and hurt, I tell you. Hurt and disappointed when all the shareholders took him to court. Edit. Wow, this blew up. Thanks for the gold in the comments and the concern. Our lawsuit basically never got off the taxiway, and as one of the good redditors below mentioned, it soon looked like the cost of going through the courts would quickly outpace our losses. People started dropping off and it fell apart. The original store and the Atlanta store were closed. Those bridges he well and truly burned. The final store has changed names but appears to be going strong. No way in hell will I name the business. I don't doubt for a second that while we smaller potato investors weren't ready for a long court fight, the owner would have no qualms about bringing a defamation suit against me in a heartbeat. Sometimes, karma is just asleep at the wheel and you have to accept it. Did it get settled? Whoa. An older lady walked into a construction area where she knew she wasn't supposed to go just to snoop around when the workers weren't there and then sued because she slipped on a plastic floor covering. She worked there. She knew the area was off limits. Did it anyway. How did the lawsuit turn out? My cat plays with the closet door and sometimes shuts himself in. Then I get an angry cat yowling to get let out and acts like I'm the one that locked him in there. When I was teaching, I had a student I adored who had some behavior problems. I did everything I could to support him. One day, we were taking a test and he was talking. I reminded him several times that talking during a test is not allowed, and I would have him go in the hallway if he continued. He continued talking, so I told him to go into the hall. He called me autistic on his way out, his favorite insult, and so I wrote him a referral. I called his parents and they didn't answer, so I sent an email explaining what happened, that he got the referral, and that I hope we can work together to help him manage his reactions. His mother responded saying that my behavior is unacceptable and that she is done speaking with me and I will hear from her lawyer. She went all the way up to the district level to complain about me, telling all sorts of lies and making me look like a horrible person. I don't teach anymore. Goddamn. A lot of police departments are now wearing body cams for accountability purposes, but it sounds like teachers are the next profession that ought to be wearing them for their own protection. Having an objective recording of what did, or didn't, happen sounds like it would be a blessing. My friend's sister. She doesn't feed her kids nor send the oldest one, 7, to school. Her neighbors reported her to CPS, and now she's posting statuses about how cruel people are for separating a mother and her kids. What do you mean she wasn't feeding her kids? How were they getting by? I quit my job and set up my own competing business with my ex-employer after he failed to pay me for 2 months claiming non-payment from the clients. He had a massive go at me after I confronted him with receipts from the clients to show payment and he accused me of making him look bad in front of his clients and that he didn't owe me the money because some people are bosses and some people are employees, hence why I quit the job and set up for myself because last time I checked, slavery is illegal in the UK. I also warned a few of my ex-co-workers to be careful and not let him rack up debt with them because of what he did to me. They are nice people with young families and don't deserve to be taken advantage of, like he did to me. I take him to court to try to recoup the money he owed me for the work I completed and the judge ruled in my favor for the full amount of just over £4,000. He then plays the victim card with everyone he knows and says that I made him and his family homeless despite the fact that he never paid me a penny of the money he owed. £4,000 is like 5-6 months rent in a decent neighborhood in my city. Honestly blows my mind every time I think about it. Short story, the dude stole over £4,000 from me, never pays me back, blames me for making his family homeless. You have a court order for the money, and he still hasn't paid? Sounds like you need to head back to the court. Facebook drama from a few years ago. This girl was leaving a bar drunk, and she backed her car into the car of someone she was an acquaintance with while exiting the parking lot. Then the next day went off on him for telling the police he saw her do it, when he knew she was poor and could have just said he didn't see it and had his insurance pay. She kept digging a deeper hole and all the replies were like, bitch, don't drive drunk. It was glorious. Insurance would pay for it either way. But this way her premium goes up, not his. If he reported it as he didn't see who did it, it would show as an at-fault accident on his driving history. If in the US. I lost a lot of weight, 150 lbs. My overweight friend didn't. I don't care. She's my friend. I love her. I tried on a pair of size 12, size 8 US jeans, but they were too big, so asked for the smaller size. Before I could try them on, my friend stormed out of the shop, and when I followed her she screamed at me for rubbing my weight loss in her face. I lost the weight in 2015. I've been this size for 4 years. What did she want you to do? Buy pants that don't fit, wasting your money, to spare her feelings? My crazy college girlfriend cheated on me and then blamed me for causing problems in our relationship by being obsessed with the truth, as I figured out what had happened. Better to be obsessed with the truth than with a lie. I was in a crowded parking lot, driving around looking for a space. There was one car ahead of me. The car ahead of me stopped, so I stopped as well. I'm not sure why she stopped, because there were no empty spaces and no one was pulling out, but whatever. Then, before I even had time to react, her reverse lights came on and she came flying backwards towards me. I didn't even have time to honk. She slammed into the front of my car, got out of her car, and started screaming that I hit her. When officers arrived, she was crying and shaking and complaining that her neck hurt, and cursing me for slamming into the back of her car. Thankfully, 2 people had been walking through the parking lot when this occurred and told the officer what really happened. Later, the driver of the car that hit me tried to tell her insurance company that I knew the witnesses and that's why they lied. I didn't know the witnesses, by the way. At any rate, if the witnesses hadn't stuck around to give statements, I'd have been screwed. So I should probably put a dash cam on my car for my safety. My best friend's ex-girlfriend. Basically, her ex was kicked out of her parents' house when she told them she was a lesbian. She moved in with my best friend since they were dating at the time. At first she told my GF that she was too depressed to find a job. My best friend was okay with that, even if it meant she'd have to work more, which she did. She even found a second part-time job. For the next 6 months, whenever my best friend asked her if she found a job, she'd always get the "I'm too depressed" response. Eventually my best friend finds out her girlfriend cheated on her. Her excuse for cheating was, "You're always at work and never have time for me. I need someone who will be there for me." My best friend kicks her out and then her ex blames her for having to move back in with her parents. The kicker: turns out her parents never really kicked her out, she was just tired of them telling her to get a job. My sister's friend was beaten up by her boyfriend and stayed the night downstairs of our house with her 3 kids. Next day he comes around, starts cursing her out, saying she stole his kids. Grabs the baby and starts walking away with him. She chases him trying to get the baby back and he punches her several times in the face. My brother intervenes and separated them. This arsehole leaves and brings back the cops to arrest my brother for assault. My ex-husband got arrested for having child porn. He blamed me, saying it was my fault. He was so depressed he went looking for it. Edit: I did not expect this comment to get so much attention. Thank you for the supportive comments. Some follow up: his depression defense worked. He was given 8 months house arrest, no jail time. Fast forward several years to now, he is sitting in jail awaiting trial, charged with first-degree sexual abuse of a minor. An employee was being fired for a multitude of infractions at a coffee shop. He had been caught by management calling customers things like dumbass and stupid fuck under his breath, and several customers had also reported the behavior. He was constantly late or would leave early or beg others to cover his shift. Instead of restocking or cleaning the area during downtimes, he would take out his drumsticks and practice, which annoyed the other employees and customers. During inventory counts we noticed whole pallets of sandwiches or baked goods were missing, as well as bottled drinks, etc. We were mysteriously out of huge 5 pounds bags of the espresso roast. The numbers were not adding up. He was subsequently fired after being caught bad-mouthing a customer while a visiting manager was also in the cafe. The guy didn't know it. The guy blamed all the issues on everyone else. Late to work turned into I missed the bus or my roommate forgot to wake me up in time. Leaving early turned into well I got a call for a gig, there was a concert I wanted to see. Food missing turned into I didn't have money to eat and it's the company's responsibility to ensure I'm fed while on the clock. Calling customers names turned into they misunderstood me. Management said what part of calling a customer a dumb fuck is a misunderstanding, followed by not my fault, they're so sensitive. All this dude's problems were blamed on everyone else and all his issues and situation in life was blamed on everyone else. Us employees stopped inviting him out because at bars he would order drinks and tell the bartender one of us was covering and skip out or leave rapidly before check was presented to us. He would also walk around tables when people got up to dance or talk in a group and guzzle down their drinks. He was an all-over shitty person. Found out after he was fired from our store he was hired by a Starbucks in the mall, who failed to call for a reference or check even though our store was listed as previous place of employment. He was caught stealing money and food from there too. Edit. I wanted to add this was our worst employee. We had another guy who worked his ass off but had a generally bad demeanor, but he was a solid hard worker. One day he sat down and watched the drummer dude spout his mouth off and treat customers like shit and turned to me and said, I hope to God I don't sound or act like that. Just from watching this one guy, the other employee became a model customer service employee almost overnight. Also, we had another guy there. He went by some weird animal name instead of his real name. He was sent home for showing up drunk several times and was let go after management found he snuck a bottle of vodka in and was adding it to girls' drinks during the late shift. Sometimes my children ask me why they've met my mother but never met my father. I tell them he died a long time ago when I was a kid. In reality, my dad used to be an abusive drunk, and my mother had to kick him out because he used to beat on us kids. We used to spend weekends at his new house, but around the time I turned 10 he told my mother to stop dropping us off, and gave her a shoebox full of all the pictures he had of us. We tried calling him on holidays every now and again, but he finally just told us to stop contacting him altogether. Last year my mother passed away, and he decided to reach out to me and expressed he had changed and wanted to make things up to me. I told him it was okay. I filled him in on how I was doing in life and sent him pictures of my children, but I expressed I was already a man and don't need a father anymore, but he was forgiven for the 20-year absence. He then proceeded to tell me that I'm horrible for pushing him away and abandoning him, that he was dying and just wanted to fix things. So I just explained to him, it's already forgiven, but he abandoned me and I had no time for his foolishness. I wish things would have been different, but he's too much of a bad influence to allow in my children's lives. This guy got upset saying we were always talking about him behind his back. He would creep up to the door in our apartment and stand there listening to our conversations. Of course we would talk about him. He owed two of us over $600 and refused to pay it. And then we were the bad people because we would talk about it in our own apartment, not knowing he is creeping around the door. My brother, our whole life, has blamed our middle class upbringing for him taking zero responsibility. He's basically a 40-year-old version of no one gets me. He spends his money recklessly, has turned down opportunities to advance himself in lieu of making YouTube videos in his shed ranting about how riches keep him down. It's pathetic. My Bill, wife's brother, everything is terrible in his life because everyone conspires to be mean to him. All his drug problems are other people's fault. The government never should have taken his kid from him, because he is a good father. When his disabled mother got custody of his kid and then let him move in with them, she made up all those stories about him hitting her and the kid. When the government, both APS and CPS, told us we had to protect them from him, we had no right to take his kid that he hadn't had custody of for years. He lives off disability for back problems he's had since getting a beatdown for running his mouth at the wrong people, despite the fact his doctors tell him he doesn't need a wheelchair and can work. It's our fault he can't pay his bills, even though he's still living in his mother's house rent-free, And that surely has nothing to do with the fact that he blows his disability check on drugs and junk food as soon as he gets it. In his mind, we abandoned him to die and are horrible people for not letting him live with us, despite the fact that the government literally put his mother and kid in our care to keep them safe from him. He came up with a scheme where he called 911 to be taken to the local hospital. When he got there, he told them he was dying because he was wheelchair bound and abandoned in a squalid house. The house became squalid after the mother and kid were removed because he refused to clean and had a dog he never let outside. He actually got Adult Protective Services to call us and tell us we had to take care of him and fix up his house. By the way, we live 250 miles away in a different state. We explained the history and gave them the names of the case workers for his mother and son, who know him well. Apps confirmed what we told them. When Apps told him we didn't agree to let him live with us, he demanded they file a court order to force us to allow him to live in our home. Apps told him that wasn't actually a thing that could happen, so he started screaming profanities at everyone in the hospital. She called us from the hospital. We heard him screaming. When the doctors told him, again, he didn't need a wheelchair, he screamed at them. They discharged him, but he refused to leave on his own, so they sent him home in an ambulance. He refused to get out, so they wound up driving him back to the hospital and leaving him on a gurney in the ER waiting room. After 8 hours, when he still refused to leave, they had security drag him out and dump him in the parking lot. A few weeks later, he's calling us begging us to pay his bills and goes off again on how we had no right to take his kid from him, and we're terrible people because we refuse to acknowledge what a good father he is. He lives in the rural South. Do you know what it takes for CPS to take your kid in a poor county in the South? We're talking immediate danger to life. Not only did they do that, and then a judge permanently took away his custody, but then they came back and said the kid and his mother weren't safe in the same house as him, and we stole his kid. I raised my kids, they've graduated and are adults. I have zero desire to raise another kid, let alone one who has significant emotional issues from being abused. But guess what? I am. Because I'm not a total piece of shit, and I can't turn my back on them. But in my brother-in-law's eyes, this is all a vast conspiracy to spite him.